This is a Viva PR podcast.
We know that we can help people ride this turbulent period with the services and the products that we've got on offer. Just having years of experience doesn't make you any good. You need to have the theories into practice. There will always be a place for the people who are asking questions in terms of where organisations are going, how they need to protect themselves. It's always been a frustration to me that regional agencies have at times been seen as the cheaper solution.
Hello and welcome to PR in the Real World, the podcast that looks at the industry through the eyes of the people who are in it. Today, I promise you, you're in for a real treat because our guest is Sarah Waddington, the interim CEO of PRCA, a chartered director and executive coach, and a long-time champion of social mobility. Sarah's from the Northeast, so she's also a champion for agencies like ours in the regions. And she's also co-founded Socially Mobile, which is changing lives through access to comms training. On top of all that, she's advised agencies, boards and governments on everything from reputation to regulation. In this episode, Sarah and I talk about the power of continual learning, how to lead through turbulent times, and she also shares what she feels needs to happen for the industry to become more inclusive and future fit. So wherever you are in your PR journey, this is a conversation you need to listen to. Shall we crack on? Hi Sarah, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and what's keeping you busy at the moment?
Sure, thanks very much for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here today. So where to start? I am a PR practitioner based out of Newcastle. We have 5 kids between us, Stephen and I. I've got 2 boys, he's got 3 elder kids. And we have a Cocker Spaniel. I think that's the personal bit over and done with. But in terms of work, I'm a professional advisor to creative agencies, as is Stephen. So as well as being husband and wife, we work together through Wads Inc. We also co-founded a community interest company called Socially Mobile, which is aimed at helping people from more disadvantaged backgrounds increase their earning potential through training. And outside of that, I'm currently doing an interim role at the PRCA. So I'm interim CEO there. And obviously that's quite a big job, international organisation. And yeah, it's a pleasure and a challenge all at once.
I'll bet. What kind of agency experience did you have in the build up to that? And how does that help you in your work with the PRCA?
Yeah, I'm an agency girl through and through. I mean, I came out of university. I did French and media studies, specialising in PR, and I went straight into agency. And from that point, I just loved it. So I started in a pure PR agency and then moved into integrated. And throughout that time, got myself an MA in marketing and some digital qualifications. It was the Google Squared course, which I think is still going, but right when it first launched. And so I worked my way up in agency, then managed agencies for other people, including a big regional network agency. And it wasn't long before I decided that I wanted to do that for myself. So I then ran my own business for 13 years and evolved that into not just PR and marketing, but management consultancy with marketing and PR delivery as well. And so that as experience has been really helpful in terms of understanding the challenges and opportunities and the landscape for members. You know, I've worked closely with in-house teams throughout that time, you know, volunteered with the CIPR and the PRCA over those years too. And so I have a really good handle on also what's going on inside organisations for the teams that are front and centre there, advising upwards and delivering downwards. And you can't beat that. So when I go to chat to any member, when I chat to any partner, when I chat to sponsors, we can talk about what's going on in the industry. You know, talk about what does the future of practice look like, and I think that's really crucial. Yeah. In terms of my background's been really useful in understanding that, not least because I started a community called Future Proof, which brought together a lot of academics, a lot of practitioners, internationally as well as within the UK, to understand where we were headed and what kind of skills we would need. So all of that has been kind of really good background to getting into this role, and yeah, understanding what people need and where we can deliver value, and that's key for me.
With your PRCA hat on, what do you see as some of the big challenges that are facing both agencies and in-house teams right now?
Oof. Now, where to start? I think if you look at the political turmoil, and I don't think that's too big a word, that impacts us all. And I think the thing where we need to start is that we've got to remember that agency bosses are business people. They're running, serious businesses. Similarly, we've got organizations, in-house teams who are kind of trying to weather the changes that we're seeing. In the UK alone, we've got a really flat economy. It hasn't really picked up for a long time. If you talk to economists, they'll say that this has been the flattest time ever in history, because we had the Brexit vote, we had COVID, and it didn't really quite pick up. We've had a number of different elections, and now we've got this, like I say, we've got this geopolitical issue and the war in Ukraine. I mean, you can go and so I think firstly, you've got to remember that just in terms of doing business at its very core, things are challenging. So I think there's that in terms of the big picture. Then we've got these big technological changes. We've got AI, and the big fundamental question is, how do we adopt that? How do we drive that? And how do we do that with intentionality and not be taken along? Now, we can get very caught up in our industry with shiny new things, but miss the opportunity to lead the debate around it and direct the direction of travel. And we need to not do that at the moment. And that's why at the PRCA, we're busy gathering data through an in-house and an agency survey to understand AI usage, whether people have got a handle on the environmental impact, how they're using it, what permissions they've got, how they're engaging with clients on that. There are some big meaty questions in there. And it's like a 20-minute survey. And I appreciate that's a big ask, but it's really important, because while we can't bring out a policy paper because the industry is moving just too fast, that it's just too quick. We are hoping to do a green paper to help advise people. So we've got some basic ground rules that will help people get across this big issue and then hopefully lead from the front. And then I think there were just very big issues as well in terms of, go back to the economy piece, we're flatlining a little bit, which means that organizations aren't necessarily investing in public relations and marketing and public affairs in the way they would have done before, or certainly when we were in boom time. And the procurement process itself can be a really challenging one. There can be some bad practice like that creeps in. So, late deadlines for submissions, not ghosting people after they've actually pitched, just not appointing. I mean, there's all kinds of horror stories that we've heard. And the PRCA has created PitchForward, which is some best practice that aims to help that. It aims to help in-house teams too, because if you chat to in-house teams, they're often be as frustrated by the process as the agencies who are involved, because it doesn't work for them either. So what we're trying to do is just provide some guidance, which means that everybody's got something to work to. Everybody knows what good looks like. And hopefully the in-house team will get a brilliant agency who will deliver for them, and the agency will have a good experience, whether or not they win the work.
Yeah, well, don't get me started on ghosting. Anyway, so you've been at the PRCA now a matter of months, but I just wondered whether your tenure there has changed in any way how you feel about the industry and the people within it, in some of the kind of people that you've met and the stories that you've come across.
Do you know, I think it's probably given me a more holistic viewpoint, and I mean from an international perspective on that, because I've been very UK based. I've always worked across the UK, but this is an international organization, and so we're strong in MENA, APAC, Americas. We really are truly global. So that's been really interesting, and meeting those people and understanding where we're operating, how that works. We'll be doing a bit of rationalization around that, but that's been fascinating. But in terms of how I feel about the industry and our members, or even just the industry generally, I guess I'm still a bigger champion as ever. In fact, even more so. I've always been someone, and I think my track record allows me to say this, who's really advocated for the industry, who's advocated for continual professional development, because I really believe in lifelong learning, who has really wanted PR to PR itself, for us to be taken seriously by big business leaders and government. And I think what I love about this role is it gives you the opportunity to stand up and do that from a really credible base and say, look, we're the trade association. This is the data that we've got. This is what we do. This is why you need to invest in this. And this is the value that we bring to organizations. And that is really powerful.
That's really interesting. I was talking to producer Dan a few weeks ago because I'd heard you on another podcast, and I said, we've got to get Sarah on, because you were talking then about championing the regions, and that's what we're all about in so much as we set up our little kind of podcast to shine a light on some of the great work that's done outside of the bubble. I just wondered why you're so passionate about the regions as well. It might the clue might be in the accent, but I'll let you answer
I'm loving the fact that I'm on a podcast with another regional accent, which is absolutely just wonderful and music to my ears. Well, as you've spotted, I mean, I'm live and work outside of Newcastle. It's where I built my agency. We worked across the UK, and now I advise agencies right across the UK, like Stephen does. And it's always been a frustration to me that regional agencies have at times been seen as the cheaper solution to fulfillment needs. Now, my experience, and as it has been long term throughout my entire career, and that's like 25 plus years now, is that the regions produce some of the most strategic practitioners and the best work that I've ever seen. If you want to talk about alignment with organizational objectives, I've just seen some fantastic work, and that's across, like I said, the full service remit. And you'll often find that there are really long-term relationships in place with regional agencies because they care, they're a business partner, they're invested. And it's interesting because I look at Newcastle and it's been very different over time. So we used to have a very small number of integrated agencies. Then we had a recession, everybody split out, and there was like a huge infrastructure of much smaller agencies. Then they kind of pulled back together again, but we still have some larger agencies, but there's a real nice mix in ecosystem and they dovetail together really well. And I love to see that in the regions, and there's not always a mirror shined on that, which I think is disappointing, because if you actually go in there, you can get some really good diverse talent, and that's also really important. And I just think they can be shortchanged a little bit. So, it was a pleasure for me when I first started to get involved in a national level at CIPR. I was asked to do some regions and nations work, and to go out into the regions and nations to understand how people felt about their membership. And that was a real privilege, starting to understand that and how we could move further into the regions. And it's lovely now to be doing that from the PRCA, in terms of the PRCA does have good network of coverage in the regions and home nations, but we do need to do more. We need to bring, this is what we're looking at now, bringing training to localities, because there has been an expectation that people will travel to London. Well, people don't have the budget to do that, and why should we? I mean, and I say we, it's not why should you, it's like why should I? Do you know what I mean? I'd say it infuriates me. It's a double cost, right? We're also looking at things like, how do we, because we do benchmarking every single year, how can we take that back out to everybody to make sure that they've got the information that they need so they can be really competitive, because that tells you how you're benchmarking against other people in your locality, but also across the UK. I'm also dead keen that I see more people across the regions and nations doing our communications management standard. It is just a brilliant standard for whether you're an agency or in-house, just to professionalize your business, your department. It's a really great piece of work that will allow you to have confidence and actually to be taken seriously within your own organization. I spoke to a gentleman who leads the comms function in NHS Foundation Trust the other day, and he said when he sent round that they had achieved their CMS accreditation, it was the first time that everybody on the board turned around and were like, oh wow, look at what they're doing across in the comms function, because everybody else in their different departments will have accreditations, whether it's ISO or whatever it might be. This is one where you can be taken really seriously, and I want to make sure that we get that, and that people are aware of that across the UK, so they can benefit from that too, for a relatively low cost as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I don't think there is a great deal of awareness of that. I know it is pushed from time to time, but it'd be an area that we could definitely strengthen. Tell us about your kind of vision then for the regions.
Yeah, it's just about getting in there more and making sure that we're developing a real presence so that people feel supported. Now, we've got some brilliant regional managers, don't get me wrong, and they're active. It's like, how can we support them more from the centre so that we can do more? And so it's about that engagement piece, in terms of we're doing an awful lot of listening to say, what is it that people want? Now, glad to say we've got the DARE Awards. They're really popular. They're going to be going ahead. I'm going to be doing a bit of a roadshow myself across May and June, just to get to the different places. It's good to keep moving around. I've already done events in Cardiff and Edinburgh. And I'm just really keen that we demonstrate our commitment by being present. So that's really why I'm kind of hitting the trains and getting everywhere I possibly can. And so it's just like I say, making sure that we bring in more membership, because I see that's where the growth opportunity is, but they drill down the benefits. So for me, it's just being really specific with who we're targeting and making sure that if they do sign up, they're getting exactly what they want to take them further forward faster. And I hate saying that because that sounds like a Labour slogan, doesn't it? But be that as it may, just I was not trying to replicate that. But we know that we can help people ride this turbulent period with the services and the products that we've got on offer. Our membership is designed to do that, to help individuals and organisations thrive.
So you're really getting through the rail miles, so to speak, then.
Yeah, it is. It's good though, but it's lovely. I did go north for the first time to Edinburgh not that long ago, and you know what? Just again, I love the Scottish accent. I love that journey, because Newcastle to Edinburgh is, if anybody hasn't done it, what a beautiful coastline. It's a fantastic journey. You can sit, you can work, or you can sit and look out the window, and either way, wonderful.
Talk to us. You mentioned the PitchForward initiative. I'd be interested in hearing a little bit more about that and what's involved.
Yeah, so at the moment, we've made sure that it's gone across to our membership, so that they've got the best practice guidance for them to employ, and so that they can also send it to, if you're an agency and you're responding to a tender, that you can send that on and saying, are these the guidelines that you're following with? So you've got something to work with. We've also shared that with the CIPR, and the PRCA will hopefully be doing a dual event for their corporate members as well, because we want to get sure it's only useful if it's in the right hands, right? What we're also doing is working with SIPS, which is one of the procurement organisations, to check that they're comfortable with it, that it works from a procurement perspective, that they share it with everybody within their membership, which I think is absolutely crucial. And we've also already pitched it to the Trade Association Forum, so they've got it. So any member of that forum has the back-end access to see that. So if they want to procure somebody in this space, whether it's public affairs or PR, that they can very quickly get the guidance. What's great about it is that the guidance it's actually applicable to pretty much any sector, especially when it's a people-led industry. So we're hoping that actually, by looking at it and reading it, we can just improve practice generally anyway, but obviously it's very specific to us. So the job really now is for us to take it out to as many business organisations as we can, and we're hoping to secure an event with the IOD very shortly too. So bit by bit, we're chipping away, and I think that's important.
It sounds like you're joining all the different pieces of the jigsaw there, and not just doing a kind of like one-off initiative that sounds great but really doesn't connect all the different people that you need to.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's kind of like, it would have been good to get to that first stage and leave it, but we want to be great, and we want to make sure it's impactful, and it's not going to be meaningful if we don't do this consistently. So I don't really see an end to this work, because we will always be looking for procurement, or either in-house people will either be looking for external support, or vice versa, with agencies looking for contracts. So we need to evolve that guidance as we go, and just like I say, make sure it is being employed. And then, if we need to take it further, once we've dealt with, we've talked to all the different business bodies, we've talked to all the procurement organisations, if there needs to be some kind of policing of that, we can then look at that. But I'm hoping we can avoid that, because obviously that's difficult for everybody, bureaucratic. We do have the codes of conduct, so people can obviously raise complaints against that if really needed. But I just think this is an education piece, and we know that takes time, and it takes effort, and it takes consistency.
Can we go back a bit then and talk about one of your other passions away from the PRCA, the socially mobile and diversity? Tell us about socially mobile and what led you to kind of spark that.
Yeah, so when I was up to becoming, and when I was president of the CIPR, I had started to read a lot of industry data that was coming through, and we had the state of the profession and then the PRCA census. And if you looked historically, it was just really clear that PR was a bit of a closed shop, and it was becoming increasingly more. So unless you were white, middle upper class, well-networked, relatively wealthy, the opportunities weren't really there, and there wasn't really a route in from school. So if you were a school leaver, you were kind of stuck. And I was frustrated by that. I'll not go into the full details, but I did try a number of approaches where I felt there was funding and there was influence in order to be able to do something like Socially Mobile, and I got knocked back. And COVID hit, and Stephen and I were chatting about it repeatedly, and I was just so frustrated. We decided that we were going to create our own private intervention, and that's where Socially Mobile was born. And originally we were going to try and make it a charity. And the idea was that we would fundraise, big amount of fundraising, and then people could apply depending on the courses that they wanted to do. And then they would engage directly with the training provider. And then it just didn't transpire that way. With COVID, there was huge delays at the Charity Commission. We then got knocked back because they felt that PR was too affluent a profession, in which they missed the point in terms of we were trying to get the people who weren't affluent. I kind of saw what they'd going in, but I didn't feel like they'd grasped the intent. And so we set up as a CIC, but actually I'm grateful to the Charity Commission for knocking us back, because it gave us extra time to think about how it would work on the governance. And we'd spoken to a number of additional stakeholders in that time. And we changed it. So we decided that we would reduce the huge fundraising target that we would have had to have. And we decided to invest our own capital and then some donations from initial foundational supporters to set up. And so we got set up and we decided that we would create our own online training program. And so we would have control over the curriculum in a way that they would align comms with management. It would give us a quality threshold that we could maintain, and we would bring in the very best people that we know according to the subject area. And we were just really lucky that we set up and we got a lot of people on board very quickly. So I'm always very grateful to our community, because we had people come in and say, yes, I'll happily volunteer my time, or for a small honorarium, record sessions under a particular theme, whether it was strategy, building high-performing teams, finance, whatever that might have been. And they did that. And then we've been able to refresh that content as needed. But we also have a fantastic community of volunteers around us who will look at our applications, which are anonymised. They will then look at them and decide whether they're appropriate for a fully funded place, because that's the idea in terms of we give fully funded places to those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds or underserved groups like people with disabilities, our LGBTQ plus colleagues, our minority ethnic colleagues, and those with disabilities. They will do that on an anonymised basis. And we have great people who give their time as well to, when they submit their homework on a weekly basis over those 10 weeks, who volunteer their time, again, because it's their domain expertise, to mark and make sure that information goes to the chief examiner, who will do their due diligence and make sure that everything is as it should be in terms of the marks. So we couldn't do this without this huge volunteer community. And again, they're from across the regions. We do have people from London, but it's a beautiful thing in terms of it's a real UK spread. And I think it's more than, we did pull down the data, and I'm sure it's like more than 3/4 of applicants are from outside London, and that's because the need is there. And often you'll find double disadvantage. So we'll find someone who's a single mum with a disabled child, and what we're trying to do is lift them up through training so they have more confidence, a better network. They feel credible in terms of their qualifications and their knowledge, and it gives them the confidence to either go in internally and say, I'd like a raise, or find another job. And it is really meaningful. And we always had high hopes for it, but the success rate has far surpassed our expectations. We've had people come off universal credit. We've had people, have a huge leap in salary because they've gone into a better job in which they're excelling. We've had organisations turn around and say this is the best course that we've ever had someone put on. And organisations can train their people through Socially Mobile, because it's one way we stay sustainable. We take paid places at £750 a place, and basically if you're putting one of your team on and you're paying yourself through, you're helping support someone who gets a fully funded place. So it works really well.
How big's that kind of network of volunteers then, roughly, in big handfuls?
Oh, I think probably 40, 50 people who are consistently involved.
That's amazing that you've been able to pull all this together. I mean, you must be really proud, you and Stephen.
We're thrilled to bits. I mean, at times it's a big endeavour, and then it's on top of the day job, and it's on top of the family, and it can be, so sometimes you do, if you don't have a good week and then you're working on the platform or whatever on the weekend, it can feel a lot. But then you have one conversation at graduation, they write in and tell you what's going on for them, or we do the impact report and you remember exactly why you're doing it, and it's worth every last, weekend, it's worth every last bit of no sleep or whatever it is. I mean, I think you featured on the podcast one of our graduates very recently, Dee, which is just fantastic. These are people who deserve this extra leg up, and I will never stop trying to help and leave that ladder down while we can do that.
When would you ever see a time where you wouldn't need Socially Mobile?
Oh God, I wish that was coming. It's interesting that, because we set it up and Steve and I said to ourselves, Our intention is to become defunct in a decade. Like we just don't want to be around. We don't want to be needed. And it's a bold ambition, but it's important, right? Will that be the case? Will we have achieved that? It's hard to say. What we do know is like we're on over 150 graduates,
Right.
and they're all our little army of leaders who are now going out into the world and recruiting in their image, their mirror image, or going into roles where they can have meaningful impact and create change. And so I'm hopeful of that, that they're the next generation taking on our work and will do what's right. There are also wonderful other initiatives that we work alongside. So there's a leader like us, people like us, Asian Communications Network, and many more, by the way. There's a Black Communications Network, BME PR Pros. There's quite a few. We try to work or kind of support each other, share each other's information. I'm very grateful to all those groups who, when they share our application details when we open for new cohorts in their communities, because we want to make sure that we're reaching the right people. Where will we be in 10 years? I don't know. I don't know whether we will still be needed or not. I've got a nasty feeling that this is going to take longer than we'd hoped. And then in that case, I think what we will need is kind of fresh blood, because Stephen and I are very aware that we can do this for a certain amount of time, but we're very reliant on our network. We're very reliant on our community. So in some respects, we'll perhaps be looking to our alumni to perhaps take on the baton and take it forward. But we don't tend to disappear anytime soon. But it's a big ambition. The rate of change isn't as quick as I'd like it to be. And if you look at what's happening in America and of course here in terms of the rollback of DE&I initiatives, that is an issue, right? And I don't think, even though a lot of organizations are getting better because they're entering industry awards, so they're having to audit, I still don't think we do auditing and benchmarking of talent brilliantly across this industry. And that's something I'd love to see change in terms of everybody auditing people's opportunities, who we're bringing in, how we're paying them, what their progression is like, what's churn like, are we listening to people's lived experiences, are we understanding the bias inherent in our systems? I don't think all that's happening quite yet. So there's work to do.
You talked about the lack of diversity within the industry as being like the catalyst for this, but why do you think diversity matters?
Well, why does diversity matter? Well, apart from the fact that you think about all the talent right across the UK, regardless of background, we should be harnessing that. So I think there's one thing in terms of, if you want to have a really brilliant workforce, that's your starting point. You shouldn't be just hiring people in your own mirror image. Secondly, it's absolutely crucial for anybody in our role, whether you're in PR or PA or marketing, any of these creative industries, because we're supposed to be representing the communities that we serve, right? So if we're putting together a campaign or we're trying to lobby for change, we need to understand those communities. And to do that, you really kind of need people who have experience of them, who've lived within those communities, who understand those communities, can speak those communities' language, can perhaps co-create with those communities. It's absolutely crucial. And then, that's where you'll get the success, and that's where you'll get the growth. If you want a really good campaign that's going to bring in commercial revenue, that's where you need to be. And if you want an organization that's kind of risk proofed, again, you need that, because you're not going to get, if you've got the right people on your team, you're not going to get some of the awful boo-boos that we've seen with maybe fashion campaigns where there's been pictures on that are wholly inappropriate or wording that's offensive. You just wouldn't get that pass, because you'd have all the different people in there going, do you know what that means to this particular group of people? Or, wow, that's a bit risky, I really wouldn't go there, or it's inappropriate because of these reasons. And we just don't see that. So for me, it's all about talent. It's all about opportunities for your organization. If you really want a brilliant place with brilliant talent, you need different life views.
You're clearly passionate about a whole range of things, but one of the things that shines through is skills and how people can continually upskill. And what lies behind that for you?
I think I'm very aware that there's been certain times in my career when I've had a big leap forward. So I'm from a single parent background. We didn't have very much money. I got a council grant to go to uni. I worked through uni. And until I got into jobs, I didn't realize how much harder my life had been compared to others. But yet my life was still reasonable compared to others. You know what I mean? You have to appreciate your own privilege, even when you've not had some privileges. But I realized that I really had to work hard to get buy-in or find my own money for my professional development. So I was lucky that I got sponsored when I did my MA in marketing. I think I paid for the Google Squared course myself, but I realized that every time I did a big piece of professional development like that, it really propelled me forward in terms of my capabilities, how good I was as a consultant, how credible I was taken, and it really boosted my confidence. And it went on and so forth. And you can yes, you can get lots of experience, and you can do years of consultancy or years of delivery. But just having years of experience doesn't make you any good, in my view. You know, you need to have the theories into practice to be really strong. And so I've always continually tried to improve. Most recently, I challenged myself to become an executive coach, which took 18 months to 2 years. And I'm delighted to be able to do that. And that's really improved my practice, both in terms of the CEO role, in terms of building a high performing team and enabling them to unlock a lot of the solutions to the issues and opportunities that we face themselves. So empowering people. But I'm also a chartered director, so I became a chartered PR, and I'm the UK's only chartered PR and chartered director now. And that's not an insignificant achievement, because if you do that through the IOD, takes about 2 years, even if you do it as quickly as you can. You know, you're talking a substantial amount of money. I think it was about 16k at the moment. If you're looking at that, you do a heap of study, around 4 modules, 4 exams. You then do 2-3 day course and then a 3.5 hour exam, and then you have an interview. But it's really, really important, right? Because it teaches you all about governance. It teaches about risk and resilience. You know, you've got the leadership and strategy stuff as well, you know, and what good organizations look like. So for me, it's a case of, where do you want to be, and how can you be the very best person if you want to lead with confidence and actually to deliver for your clients, whoever they may be, whether that's your in-house or whether your agency side. And so that lifelong learning thing is really important. And because of the challenges that I had, and the same for Stephen, we just realized that actually getting that learning isn't that easy for some people. And it's how do we do it in a way that they can fit it around their lifestyle? You know, you mentioned Dee before, you know, her own family challenges. Which is why Socially Mobile is built the way it is. It's built so you can build it around your lifestyle, whether you've got a busy home and family life. It's how you can find the time to do that. And it's online just to make it easier, because we also recognize that people just can't necessarily get into one particular place week in, week out. And so that's to help other people stay competitive. And what we say is about leading, I said it before, but about leaving that ladder down so everybody has more equal opportunities than they did previously.
So you're certainly somebody who walks the walk as well as talks the talk. Do you think you'd have been able to do the PRCA role as well as you are doing without the chartered director and chartered PR?
As well as I am doing that. That's kind of you. I'm not sure how well I'm doing, but yeah, no, it's I'm enjoying it. It's a complex organisation, right? It's international. Yeah. I mean, the number of stakeholders alone is like mind blowing. And it's had its own challenges. It's had like leadership challenges over the past couple of years, but it's a brilliant team. It's a brilliant proposition, and it's really important as a trade association for our industry. I think for me, I'm at a certain place at a certain time, and it's thanks to those qualifications in some respects. And I know that imposter syndrome hits most people, but genuinely having put that effort in, having done that graft, and also knowing where to turn when I have a question that I can't answer, and knowing that I don't always have to have the answer is absolutely crucial. So yeah, I think they've all been really important, and actually also giving the management board, who I report to, confidence that I do have the experience and the intelligence to do the necessary.
We're going to look ahead now, and just wanted to get your take on where the industry needs to evolve to kind of stay relevant and impactful, given that, like you've said earlier, the state of the world as it is.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? I think this is about our futures and foresights work and understanding where we are going as a society and where PR can help in terms of bringing communities together, helping educate people in terms of the different transformations that are ahead, including, like I say, technological advances. This is where we need to get ahead of it and to be advising. So, a lot of people talk about ESG, but those are really like those environmental, societal, governance issues are really core now. If we look at the big issues facing society, whether it's climate, whether it's finance, whatever it might be, we're in a very difficult situation. And we look at the rise of the right-wing parties, we look at the issues to do with misinformation. These are all areas in which we can be incredibly instrumental. Our public affairs colleagues, the members that we have at the PRCA are absolutely brilliant at engaging with policymakers to make sure that voices are heard, and that even disenfranchised ones, and to make sure that there is a really strategic view on big decisions that are being taken on our behalf. And I think that's us in terms of making sure that we can see the direction of travel globally, and that we're aligning our work with that, and making sure that we have the skills that are appropriate to advise in those particular areas.
What excites you most about the future of the industry? And from my perspective, in the little agency hat on, I'm spending a lot of time now dabbling on the AI front, and that's interesting, and I can see masses of potential as well as some risks along the way. But what excites you about the future?
Just that while it may feel challenging and people are naturally cautious, I just see huge opportunity for us. The opportunity, as long as we continue our professional development, as long as we act as business consultants, and we're not just acting as a delivery function, that we're asking the right questions, we're advising in the right way, there is only one way, and that's up. And that's why I'll be always banging the drum with government, using our new links with the Trade Association Forum, with the CBI, to make sure that the voice of the PR and PA community is heard loud and proud, centre of that, because we know we're really important to the success of organisations. We bring everybody together. We can do the futures and foresight work. We can do the lobbying. We could do the risk and resilience. We can do the crisis management, that whole reputation piece. We can do measurement. All these things are absolutely fundamental to a healthy board, to a healthy organisation. We just need to better educate people about it. So for me, I'm quite upbeat, because it can be tricky, but we're helping people with bringing the tools so that our practitioners and our members and our agencies and our in-houses can thrive. And it's about then creating the opportunities elsewhere, and that's what we're doing.
Finally, like one wrap-up question, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to young people who are thinking about joining the PR industry?
Where to start with that one? Well, it's a very diverse industry, isn't it? So the opportunities are there for the taking. I think I would say, you mentioned AI. I think that's a really good point. I'm in a lot of conversations at the moment about what the future workforce looks like, and what will happen to that kind of junior role, which might have been someone who was gathering media cuttings, doing quite a slightly admin function, but in support of the wider campaign goals or the wider strategic goals. My view would be, start from a business management perspective. Make sure that you're understanding organizations, that you're understanding leadership, because actually if you align with those, that's where the jobs will be. I can't say if we are intentional about the use of AI and we start to drive that rather than being driven by it, there will always be a place for the people who are asking questions in terms of where organizations are going, how they need to protect themselves, how they can engage with their stakeholder community, what that mapping looks like, and so on and so forth. So my view would be, think about the longer term and that business consultancy piece, because I think that will immediately set you up for success.
Thank you so much. That we could chat all day, I'm sure, but
Absolutely.
You've got so many different hats. You haven't not got the time, but it's been an absolute pleasure. And
thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Wish you all the best with both PRCA and Socially Mobile, and anything else that you and Stephen are turning your hand to.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to PR in the Real World. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast and leave us a quick review. Your support really helps spread the word and reach more marketing and PR professionals just like you. And don't forget to share this podcast with your colleagues or anyone who'd benefit from the insights we share. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for more tips, strategies and real world stories from the PR frontlines.